everyone. Welcome to Collapse Astrology. Welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Hummingbird, and well, you clicked. So let's go ahead and dive right into some Doomer Astrology. This video is going to be based on an Instagram post that I made a few weeks ago, and so I'm going to show you the images from the post and then elaborate on them in the video. And there will be 2 more Doomer Astrology videos after this one with the same format. But if you don't want to wait for the full Doomer Astrology scoop, all 3 posts are already up on my Instagram. I do want to say up front that the creation of this series is transforming me. It's a synthesis of everything I've been working on since 2018, but it's also something new, especially the second 2 parts. And the crazy thing is that I have really had no hope about humanity's future for years. And right now, right as the darkness really seems to be closing in on us, I'm having this kind of wild burst of hope come through. So I'm going to explain all of this throughout the series. But it's not about stopping collapse. Like, life as we know it is ending, especially here in the West. That is facts. And if you're not down with that, this is definitely not the channel for you. But more people than ever are here to face it, here for these conversations, admitting it to themselves. And after you do that, that's when you can ask from a truly grounded place, okay, what do I do now? I'm still alive. How can I show up as my best self in these times? How can I proactively prepare for my own survival? And astrology does not have the answers to these questions, but it can help to guide us like a map on a journey. And it's one part of what I'll get to in the 3rd video, which is the spiritual awakening happening throughout humanity as we face this very Plutonian adapt or die moment. And really, since Pluto moved into Aquarius and then through writing this series, I feel this fast, crazy kind of acceleration of everything, a truly quantum shift. And it is obviously very scary and very dark in a lot of ways, but it also gives me hope. I feel our potential power, the power of the light. And so we're going to get into a lot of heavy stuff in today's video, as well as in the next one, which focuses on the future. But I hope that you can feel my frequency and stay with me through the muck and through the darkness, because I promise there is some hope at the end. So this is 101, which is basically the present. I'm going to share about the current outer planet transits and how they map to facts, things that have already happened, as well as observations and predictions being made by non-astrological experts in areas like climate, geopolitics, technology, etc. Actually, I think this is super obvious stuff, but as far as I know, no one else has put together an analysis like this. And there is definitely a trigger warning here for collapse. So don't watch this if you are anywhere near the edge of a spiral. And before you do watch, you might want to grab a hot or cold drink, a comfort object, or a blanket, maybe even lie down and create as much safety and comfort for your physical body as possible to remind yourself, to remind your nervous system that in this moment, even as you are taking in some scary or intense information, in this moment you have everything you need and you have time and space to prepare for what's next. So with that, let's get into it. This is Doomer Astrology 101. An analysis of the things the experts are saying that astrology only affirms. And this is from an Instagram post that was shared on December 26, 2024. In mundane astrology, outer planet transits correspond to collective shifts in the social fabric, be they political, economic, religious, cultural, or anything else. The current and upcoming movements of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto describe trends that experts in various realms have been naming for years with pretty astounding archetypal accuracy. And the cold, hard truth is that it does not look good. That's what the experts are saying, and that's what the astrology affirms. What I'm calling Doomer Astrology is my analysis of these 3 planets and what their current placements tell us about humanity's predicament. So these are analyses that I've been developing since 2020, actually earlier, but that was the first time that I taught them in my course called Astrology for Revolutionaries. And you can also find some of this analysis on my old YouTube channel, Astrology for the Revolution. There's a different video for each planet there, which I made back in 2021. And I've left those up for like my Cassandra claim to fame, but I also definitely got some things wrong, and I'm much more deprogrammed now from American propaganda than I was then. So, watch at your own risk. Try not to judge too hard if you check those out. There is actually so much more to this analysis than I will even be able to include in this video series. So someday, hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll offer my course again. And if you want the full download, that will be where to find it. But also, this is probably more than enough for now. So we start off with Uranus in Taurus. It's been there since 2018. It's moving into Gemini over the next year and a half or so. Uranus's 7-year transit through Taurus corresponds to the largest consolidation of wealth in history. Uranus relates to technology and maps to the evolution of big tech, which birthed itself while Uranus was in Aries from 2010 to 2018. In 2018, Uranus entered Taurus, a sign that loves to accumulate resources, and the industry shifted gears. Add in a few Uranian shocks like the pandemic, and now we've got massive wealth inequality and power concentrated in the hands of a few psychopathic oligarchs. So this is an accurate graph based on the most recent numbers I could find for each of these losers' net worth. And it's kind of funny because Elon dwarfs everybody else now. When I first started researching, Elon wasn't the richest, and you can see on the graph how he started at less than the rest of them. So his wealth really shot up during the pandemic. And honestly, this graph doesn't even really do the change justice, because remember that before this, there were very few billionaires coming into this era of Uranus and Taurus. Zuck and Gates and Bezos had a few billion each. Now Elon has 426 billion. And beyond just money, this transit has also corresponded to billionaires buying up and consolidating so many other physical resources: real estate, farmland, internet infrastructure, satellite internet like Starlink, all the resources needed for space travel. Now, as we're seeing fucking water with these billionaires in California, but especially if we're talking about these big tech top level monsters, both the dudes themselves and their companies, this has been the era where they have just tried to own as much as possible. Uranus in Aries was the era of move fast and break things, which was a term coined by Zuck in 2009, right as Uranus was entering Aries. And then after breaking things, the big tech companies started to put them back together with Uranus and Taurus. And crypto, that whole ballgame has also been a part of Uranus and Taurus. The ups and downs of the market have been very Uranian. And I've got to say, it's hard for me to see Uranus and Taurus closing out without one more massive crash. Uranus makes a lot of waves when it changes signs, and the 29th degree of a sign is the most edgy and unstable degree, in my opinion. So all that we can hope for is that that crash stays in the crypto space, in that fake money space, and doesn't tumble all the way down to the people. Now we move on to Neptune in Pisces. It's been there since 2010, and Neptune is entering Aries also over the next year and a half or so. So Neptune and Pisces are both associated with the ocean. They also both have shadows of delusion, denial, escapism, and magical thinking. And I know I'm preaching to the choir to most of you here, but most of the Western world is still in deep denial about the climate crisis. Meanwhile, sea levels and temperatures are rising at unprecedented rates. As Neptune enters Aries, I hear an alarm, a wake-up call. I see heat waves, fires, and a new sense of emergency. And again, this is no different than the predictions of climate experts. So there are screenshots on this slide of 2 different studies, and you can see the links to those sources in the description box. And, often enough, actually, people come into my comments on Instagram when I talk about this stuff saying things like climate change is a hoax and the climate has always changed. And I want to address that a little. So I'm a believer in ancient civilizations, and I believe that there have been advanced evolutionary branches of humans before us that were wiped out in climate catastrophes. And I don't know exactly what I believe yet about the different times it happened, the causes, etc. But it's very true that the climate has changed before. It's changed chaotically before. It's changed very quickly before in ways that had to be apocalyptic for any life forms that faced it. And the last time was not that long ago. You can look up the Younger Dryas if you're not familiar. That was about 12,000 years ago. There also may have been some kind of big flood in Mesopotamia about 7,000 years ago that possibly corresponds to Noah's Ark. And I don't have any solid beliefs about what caused either of those events, but I think that things like this happen when the equilibrium of the systems of life on Earth are thrown off. I think sometimes they might happen locally, and sometimes they might happen to the entire globe, or there might be events that affect different parts of the globe in different ways. And equilibrium could be thrown off by some kind of space-related event, whether that's an impact or something to do with the sun's fluctuations or who knows what else. But it could also be caused by some aspect of the ecosystem growing out of control, throwing off the equilibrium that way. When you throw off the equilibrium of a system, it descends into chaos for a while, then out of the chaos, a new equilibrium will emerge. So to me, it's obvious that it's humans and our energy pollution that's causing the current temperature rise and tipping us out of equilibrium. But if you don't believe that humans are the cause and that fossil fuel pollution is the cause, and instead you want to believe that the climate is just changing on its own, okay, like the climate has changed throughout history, okay, but shouldn't you still care? Like, shouldn't we still be preparing for it, at least talking about it? What's the point of denying it and calling it a hoax if you're acknowledging that massive apocalyptic climate change has happened before in human history? That's just hard for me to understand how people kind of reckon with that paradox in their own minds. And there's also this meme, which is what I really think. So also, this slide only mentions rising temperatures and sea levels, but another massive reality that's getting ignored is the shutdown of the AMOC. And if you want to know all about that, you can look a few videos back for my conversation with Carmen Spagnola on the Numinous podcast. But basically, that's just another layer of the climate crisis, which will add even more chaos to the mix. And it's another thing where evidence has been emerging for years. Scientists have been getting more and more urgent, but there's almost no press coverage. People are just in total denial. So whatever you believe about the cause of climate change, we are entering something like a season. If you've read The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin, we're entering a time of chaos, which yes, the Earth has witnessed before, but any one of us who wants to survive it had better get real about it real fast. And then next up is Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto just moved into Aquarius from Capricorn between 2023 and 2024. Capricorn is traditional, hierarchical, associated with big business and the cold, callous logic of capitalism. Aquarius is decentralized, multipolar, and prefers equal distribution rather than concentration of resources. Although you won't find this narrative in the New York Times, geopolitical experts on the left have been talking for years about the transition from unipolar Western hegemony to a multipolar power balance. Pluto's ingress into Aquarius tells us it's really happening, as does the recent BRICS expansion and America's sharp drop in global legitimacy since the beginning of the Gaza genocide. Empires don't last forever, and the US Pluto return in late Capricorn from 2022 to 2023 indicates that this one is going through a major transformation and karmic reckoning. So I won't add too much here. You can watch my other video, Pluto in Aquarius and the Multipolar World, for a much fuller breakdown. But grasping the transition from Capricorn to Aquarius is really crucial. Pluto symbolizing power, in this case geopolitical power, the tectonic plates of nation states and empires. And this change basically sucks for us in the West, but for the majority of the world, especially the global South, the new alliances and trading practices happening are positive shifts. So you'll notice that the basics of Doomer astrology are not really predictions. They're analyses that combine astrological timing and archetypes with shit that's already happening. And it's not obscure background trends that don't have any real influence on the situation. It's what's front and center, especially climate change and the consolidation of wealth by billionaires. Even the mainstream press tells these stories openly. I've been writing about this for years, and I could offer many elaborations and sources, but I don't even need to do that. These are occurrences almost everyone on Earth is aware of. While the narrative of multipolarity is more hidden in the press, it's pretty clear even in the West that the old order, represented by late Capricorn, is corrupt, exploitative, and losing power by the day. And starting from this foundational analysis, this archetypal and chronological context is crucial if we want to use astrology to look towards the future. What is the trajectory indicated by the actual factual events? Alongside history and the voices of experts in these subjects, what do the transits tell us about how reality is unfolding? As individual humans, it's naturally tough for us to see the forest through the trees when it comes to our own situation, but astrology can help us to get that bird's eye view if we're willing to look honestly at what's there. Sure, there are other more hopeful manifestations playing out too. My ebook gets into a lot of that, as well as the third video in this series, but we have to acknowledge that these three ominous shifts are dominating the big picture of how the world is changing right now. To me, that's what Doomer astrology is. And like I said, I've been watching things unfold and developing this analysis over time, but it just also seems like basic stuff, obvious stuff to anyone who knows their astrological archetypes and sees what's happening in the world. And I just feel like anyone who wants to predict the future without naming all of this is coming from nowhere. And also, I think I can be too harsh sometimes. I get frustrated and judge like the whole field of astrology for not being on top of this. Everyone is on their own timeline. I can't be the only one who's noticed it, right? I really hope not. Anyway, obviously that is a heavy ending, but let me leave you with a quote. I believe we are arriving in a time when it will no longer be possible to deny the reality of astrology or of countless other irrational truths. We can't even begin to grasp humanity's full dilemma without discussion of spirits, energy, karma, or the soul. Just because we don't have the frameworks of these invisible worlds fully fleshed out doesn't mean that they don't exist. In fact, we may not be meant to understand them completely. We have to approach them with humility, which is a foreign concept in an ideology that places humans at the peak of enlightened consciousness. But when we do that sincerely, when we learn to work co-creatively with forces larger and wider than ourselves, that's when the magic really begins. So that's a quote from my ebook, Astrology for Apocalypse, which I released a final version of in September 2023. And it goes into the three transits I covered here, plus a whole lot more, including the astrology of COVID, Chiron in Aries, Uranus in Aries, and the rise of big tech, the Great Reset. All kinds of things are in there. Some of it will feel outdated, especially in the wake of the genocide and the recent US election, but a lot of it is holding up pretty well so far. And you can also check out this article on Medium that is a summary similar to this one from the summer of 2022. All of this is linked below, including the videos on my old channel, and it should only be a few days until Doomer Astrology Part 2 comes out. So I hope to see you there. Many blessings. Bye.